Hello, and welcome back to another Eduonics tutorial. In this section, we're going over effects and techniques in Photoshop. And in this video, we'll be going over how to create facial hair. In a previous tutorial, I went over how to fix some bald, patchy spots on a beard. It was mainly just a way to show you the clone stamp and pattern stamp tools. My method was to use my tools to sample other pre-existing areas of the beard, which would require that you have facial hair in the image to begin with, so you can sample from it. But what if your existing image has no facial hair at all? How would you go about making facial hair from scratch? I've pulled up the exact same image from that previous tutorial, and it shows a man with a cigar and a pre-existing beard. Rest assured, I'm not going to sample any beard hair he already has. Instead, I'm going to show you how to make facial hair absolutely from scratch, and it will work for you no matter what image you're working on. First off, I want to get a closer look at his facial hair. So I'll go over in the Tools panel and get my Zoom tool. Then I'll just click in the canvas a few times to get a magnified view of his face. Okay, that's close enough. I'm going to be doing a bit of experimenting. So in order not to ruin this current layer, I'll go down to the bottom of the Layers panel and create a new blank layer. This will serve as my testing ground for now. Okay, so my method this time around will be to use a brush for his facial hair. This way I can create a beard from scratch, and maybe even use that same brush on other images that I want to add facial hair to. So I'll go back over to my Tools panel and get my brush tool. Now I want a very small but very hard brush. So I'll go up in the Tool options and click my Brush Preset Picker. Then I'll reduce the size all the way down to 1 pixel, and increase the hardness all the way up to 100%. Now I'll go back to my canvas and just start making tiny strokes as my hairs. Well, this presents a number of problems. Not only are the hairs all wrong, it would be incredibly time-consuming to make an entire beard this way, drawing each individual hair one at a time. I'm going to drag my new layer down to the trash icon. Then I'll make a new blank layer so I can try something else. This time, I'm just going to draw one good hair. Then I'll define that one good hair as a brush. Then I'll use my brush settings to make it lay down many hairs at once. So I'm going to make a new stroke, using one of these hairs on top as a guide. I'll start at the bottom, then just drag upwards, trying to trace the existing hair. It might take me a couple tries to get a good, smooth hair, so bear with me. There we go. That's a good one. Now, to define this as a new brush, I'll go up in the menu to Edit, Define Brush Preset. Oops! I can see from my preview thumbnail here that it's trying to make a brush out of my entire canvas. I'll hit cancel Then I'll hide every layer that doesn't contain my brush stroke. In my case, it's just my background layer. Okay, now that only one stroke is visible on the canvas, I'll go back up to Edit, Define Brush Preset. This time, the preview thumbnail looks just right. I need a name for this, so I'll go ahead and name it Hair, and click OK. Now I'll go back to my Layers panel and show my background layer again. And then I'll try my new brush on my top layer. It's brushing all right, but the hairs are being placed so close together that they wind up looking like a solid line. I'll delete this layer and create a new blank layer. I need to go a step further in customizing my brush. So, to bring up the brush window, I'll go up to Window, Brush. Now I have a new panel to work with. If I look here in the bottom left of the brush panel, there's a box where I can preview what my brush will look like. Beside it, over here to the right, there's an option for spacing. Currently, the brush is behaving like a solid line because the spacing is set very low, at 10%. I'm going to increase this up to 100%. Now in the preview, I can see my individual strokes are being placed further apart. I'll go ahead and try painting this on the canvas. Okay, that's looking a little better. The hairs are further away from each other, so at least they don't look like a solid line. But still, they're all exactly the same size. They look too similar to each other to be like natural hair. I'm gonna hit Ctrl-Z on my keyboard to clear my canvas. Then I'll go over and enable Shape Dynamics. From Shape Dynamics, I'll increase the size jitter all the way up to 100%. Now jitter basically means randomness, so the higher the size jitter, the more random the sizes of the individual hairs will be. I'll go ahead and try painting this on the canvas again. Okay, that's looking a little bit better than last time. All the strokes are appearing at slightly different sizes, so it's looking a little more natural. But they seem stuck at this certain angle. Real hair grows out more randomly and tends to curve in slightly different directions. I'm going to hit Ctrl-Z on my keyboard to clear the canvas. Then I'll go over to Angle Jitter. I'm just going to increase this to 5 because I don't want the hair to point wildly in every direction. I just want it to vary a little bit. I'll try painting this on the canvas. Okay, so now the hairs are each pointing in slightly different directions, but most of the hairs are still pointing in the same direction of the original brushstroke that I made. And there's really no rhyme or reason governing the angle of these as I drag. I'll hit Ctrl-Z on my keyboard to clear the canvas. And I'll go back to Angle and check out this Control option. Right now, this is set to Off. I'm going to try setting this to Direction instead. Then I'll just brush in the canvas. Now the direction of the hairs is being governed by the direction I drag my brush. It's just that the alignment seems off. I want the hairs to point towards the same direction that I'm dragging. I'll hit Ctrl-Z to clear the layer Then I'll go up to Brush Tip Shape. And under Brush Tip Shape, I'm going to go here in the angle. And then I'm going to set that to -130 degrees. Then I'll try brushing in the canvas again. There we go. Now the individual hairs are angling in the direction of my brush movement perfectly. I'll hit Ctrl-Z to clear the canvas. Now I'll go back up to Shape Dynamics. I want the hairs to be a bit more random in their size, and one way to do this is through the roundness. I'll go ahead and bump up the roundness jitter to 50%. I'll also go down to the bottom of the panel and enable brush projection. I find that in this case, enabling brush projection just makes the brush a little more responsive and easy to control. I'll try brushing in the canvas. This is definitely looking much better, but still, real hair doesn't travel in a line like that. The hairs should be scattered out more. I'll hit Ctrl-Z to clear the layer. Then I'll go up and directly below Shape Dynamics, I'll enable scattering. Then I'll grab this scatter option and bring it way up to 800%. Then I'll try brushing in the canvas. Much better. Now the hairs are being scattered out randomly. I'll hit Ctrl-Z to clear the layer. To make the scatter even more random, I'll go up and enable both axes. This should spread the hairs out in 2 different directions now, instead of just one. I'm going to leave count and count jitter alone, because if I were to increase the count, it would lay down more hair. But I prefer to keep it as is, because it allows me to drag over the skin multiple times to get the amount of hair that I want, giving me more control as I go along. Next, I'll go down to Color Dynamics. This is where a lot of the realism is going to take effect. Up till now, all my hairs have been pure black. But as you can see, black isn't his hair color at all. I want my brush to be the same color as his hair. So I'm going to go to my foreground color. Then I'll sample one of his hairs to get the color I need. Now I'll try brushing in the canvas. Wow, that looks even better than last time. But you may notice that in his beard, some of his hairs are different colors. That's just the way hair works. Not every strand will be the exact same color as the last. I'm going to go to my background color swatch and sample a second hair color. Now, within Color Dynamics, I'll increase the foreground-background jitter to 50%. This should make it so that my brush will randomly swap to different hues between my foreground and background colors every time I make a new stroke. I'll try brushing in the canvas. Even better than before. Now I'm getting some actual color variation every time I make a new stroke. I'll clear the layer and take the colors even further. I'll go ahead and increase the hue, saturation, and brightness jitters to 10% each. Then I'll go back to the canvas and try brushing. Wow, every hair is just so slightly different from the last. Things are looking very natural. I'll clear the layer again. Now for the final touches. I'll go down to Transfer. Then I'll increase the opacity jitter to 10%. This will make every few hairs a little less visible than the rest. Then I'll go up to Brush Tip Shape. And I like this brush pretty good as it is, but I would like a bit more hair to be laid down with each stroke. So I'll just decrease the spacing to around 20%. I'll try brushing in the blank layer one last time. There we go. That's my winner. I'll clear the layer again. And now I'd like to save this brush so I can use it in future projects. I'll go down and click the new brush icon. Then I'll name this brush Beard Brush. And click OK. Now I can actually put my brush to work. I'll get my zoom tool and zoom back out. Then I'll just start brushing in hairs using short directional strokes. Just taking my time, starting by filling in the patchy spots that have no hair. I want to try to match the directions the hairs are already going with each stroke so that they look more like they belong. Then, if I want to make the entire beard look more thick, I can go over certain areas multiple times for that effect. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's see what my image looked like before using the beard brush. I'll just click the eye icon on my layer to hide it. There's before, and here's after. Wow, it pretty much looks like the new hair was there all along. And the best part about it is that I can use this same brush in different projects to achieve similar results. That will do it for making facial hair. I'll go over another effecting technique in the next video.